Every single night, I used to fall asleep next to the man I loved, dreaming about our future. What I didn't know was that just inches away, tucked under his pillow, was a secret phone where he was building a future with someone else. My entire world shattered the moment I found it. It's funny how life sets you up, isn't it? One minute, you're just living, doing your thing, and the next, you're caught in a whirlwind you never saw coming. Before Mark, my life was steady. Good job, great friends, a cozy apartment filled with plants and books. I was happy mostly. Content. But there was always that little whisper, that quiet longing for more. For someone to share all the small, beautiful things with. And then there was Mark. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, one of those sweltering summer evenings where the air hung heavy with the smell of charcoal and possibility. He was across the yard, laughing, his eyes crinkling at the corners, and I remember thinking, wow, he has a really genuine laugh. He had this easy charm, you know? Not flashy or over the top, but just warm, like a comfortable sweater on a chilly day. He walked over, introduced himself, and we just clicked. Instantly. We talked for hours that night about everything and nothing. Our shared love for old indie movies, our dreams of traveling to obscure European towns, even our mutual dislike for cilantro. It felt like I'd known him forever, like we were picking up a conversation we'd left off years ago. From that night on, it was a blur of firsts. Our first coffee date, which turned into a 4-hour conversation. Our first proper dinner, where he remembered I'd mentioned loving Thai food and picked out the perfect little place. Our first time just staying in, curled up on my couch, watching a terrible rom-com and laughing until our stomachs hurt. He was attentive, thoughtful. He'd send me random texts during the day just to say he was thinking of me or to share a funny meme. He remembered tiny details I'd forgotten. I'd even told him. Like, I once offhandedly mentioned my favorite flower was a white peony, and a week later, a small bouquet of them appeared on my desk at work with a note that simply said, "Just because." Who does that anymore? It felt like something out of a movie. He quickly became my person, my confidant, my best friend. We talked about our futures, our families, our fears. He'd listen, really listen, to my anxieties about work or my silly worries about my plants dying. He made me feel seen, truly seen, in a way I hadn't experienced before. We started talking about moving in together, about what our apartment would look like, how we'd decorate. He even talked about kids, about how he imagined our future family. And I believed him. Every word. Because why wouldn't I? He was everything I had ever wanted, everything I had ever dreamed of. He was kind, funny, smart, and he made me feel safe. Loved. But even in that perfect bubble, looking back, there were these tiny, almost imperceptible cracks. Little things I brushed off, rationalized away because, well, you're in love, right? You want to see the best in someone. The first thing was his phone. He always had it with him, which, okay, normal. But he also had this other phone. He called it his work phone. It was an older model, a bit clunkier, and it was almost always on silent. He never answered in front of me, saying, "Oh, it's just work stuff, boring." If it rang, he'd glance at it, sometimes frown, and then dismiss it. I remember once, we were at dinner, and it vibrated on the table. He quickly flipped it over, face down, and continued talking as if nothing happened. I just thought, wow, he's so focused on me, he doesn't even let work interrupt. See? Rationalized. Then there were the late nights. He traveled for work sometimes, or so he said. Big client meeting, gotta be there early, or networking event might be late. And I understood. His job was demanding, but sometimes the stories felt a little thin. He'd be vague about details, or change the subject quickly if I asked too many questions. Once, I remember, he said he was at a conference in Chicago but then mentioned something about a new restaurant he tried in a neighborhood that wasn't really near the conference center. When I asked, "Oh, where was that?" "I thought you were near the convention center." He just waved it off. "Oh, just grabbed a quick bite with some colleagues. Nothing exciting." And I let it go, because I trusted him. He was Mark. His main phone, the one he used for everything else, was also almost always face down. Or in his pocket. He was just private, he said. Didn't like distractions. And I respected that. I'm not one to snoop, never have been. I believe in privacy, in trust. So, when he'd go to the bathroom and leave his phone on the counter, I wouldn't even glance at it. It wasn't my business. But sometimes a notification would flash across the screen before he could flip it over. A name I didn't recognize, a snippet of a message that seemed personal. Thinking of you, or can't wait to see you. And my stomach would do a little flutter, a tiny, unsettling beat. But then he'd come back, flash that charming smile, and I'd tell myself it was just a friend, or a family member, or maybe even a colleague being overly familiar. My mind was a master at building excuses for him. The biggest red flag, the one that still makes me cringe at my own naivety, was how he handled calls. If his work phone rang, he'd always step out. Just gotta take this outside, bad signal in here, he'd say, even if we were in my living room with full bars. And he'd be gone for a while. Sometimes I'd hear his voice, muffled, low, as if he was trying to keep it from carrying. I just thought he was being professional, keeping his work separate from our time together.
It was sweet, even. He was so dedicated.
It all came crashing down on a Tuesday. A perfectly ordinary Tuesday. We were supposed to have dinner at my place, our usual midweek comfort meal. He called, sounding harried, saying he was stuck in traffic, would be late. "Just start without me, babe," he said. "I'll be there as soon as I can." I told him it was fine, I'd wait. I always waited. I was setting the table, humming along to some background music, when I noticed it. On the coffee table, tucked slightly under a magazine, was his work phone. He must have forgotten it in his rush. My heart did that little flutter again, but this time, it wasn't just unsettling. It was a full-blown drum solo of dread. I told myself, don't touch it. It's his privacy. But then, a text notification popped up on the screen. And I saw the name, Chloe, and the message, "Can't wait for our trip next month. Baby. Miss you already. Baby." My hand trembled as I picked it up. It wasn't locked. He never locked that one. My thumb hovered over the message, and then, as if an invisible force guided it, I tapped. And there it was. A whole world I knew nothing about. Messages, photos, call logs. A relationship. A real relationship. With a woman named Chloe. They had inside jokes, pet names, plans for a trip to Hawaii next month. Hawaii. He'd told me he was going to a work conference in Miami next month. My vision blurred. The air left my lungs. It felt like someone had punched me in the gut, then ripped my insides out. I scrolled and scrolled and scrolled. Months of messages. Photos of them together, laughing, holding hands, kissing. In places I recognized. That little Italian restaurant we went to for our 3-month anniversary, there was a photo of him and Chloe sitting at our table smiling. The park where he first told me he loved me. Another photo, same bench, different woman. 2 phones. 2 women. And I was one of them. The one who had no idea. The phone slipped from my numb fingers, clattering onto the coffee table. I sank onto the couch, the world spinning around me. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the sheer audacity. The meticulous deception. How could someone live like that? How could he look me in the eye, tell me he loved me, plan a future with me, while simultaneously building another life with someone else? Every memory, every sweet word, every shared laugh, it all twisted into something ugly and grotesque. Was any of it real? Was he ever real? My breath hitched. A sob tore through my chest, raw and guttural. I felt a wave of nausea, a cold sweat breaking out on my skin. My hands were shaking so violently, I had to clench them into fists. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to just disappear. The silence of my apartment, which usually felt comforting, now felt suffocating, mocking. He called about 20 minutes later. "Hey babe, almost there. Just hit a patch of traffic." His voice so normal, so calm. It was too much. I couldn't pretend. "Don't come here, Mark," I said, my voice a shaky whisper, barely recognizable as my own. There was a beat of silence.
"What?
What's wrong? Are you okay?" The concern in his voice was so convincing, it made me want to vomit. "I know," I choked out, tears streaming down my face now, hot and unstoppable. "I know about Chloe. And the other phone." The silence on the other end was deafening. Then a sigh. A deep, resigned sigh. Not shock, not denial. Just resignation. That sigh was more painful than any shout. It confirmed everything. It meant he knew this day would come. Sarah, please let me explain, he started, his voice suddenly softer, almost pleading. Explain what, Mark? I screamed, the words finally breaking free. Explain how you managed to live 2 lives? Explain how you looked me in the eye and lied every single day? Explain how you could be with me and then go to her and then come back to me like I was just some interchangeable part of your schedule. He tried to come over to talk. I refused. I just hung up, and then I collapsed. I cried until my throat was raw, until my eyes were swollen shut. I curled into a ball on the floor, surrounded by the dinner I had cooked for him, the table I had set for us. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. The next few days were a blur of pain. I called my best friend, Maya, and through choked sobs, told her everything. She was there in an instant, holding me, letting me rage and cry. She didn't say, I told you so, even though I knew she'd had her suspicions about his evasiveness. She just held me. Every song on the radio felt like it was written about me. Every couple I saw walking down the street, holding hands, felt like a cruel joke. I replayed every conversation, every moment, searching for clues I'd missed, for signs I'd ignored. And they were there. So many of them. The work phone, the vague stories, the flipped-over screen. I felt like the biggest fool on earth. How could I have been so blind? So trusting? So utterly, completely stupid? The shame was almost as bad as the heartbreak. The shame of having invested so much, of having believed so deeply, only to find out it was all a house of cards. I felt dirty, used, like a pawn in someone else's twisted game. It took time. So much time. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. There were good days, where the sun felt warm on my skin, and I could almost forget. And then there were bad days, where the grief would hit me like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. I deleted his number, unfollowed him on everything. I even changed my routine, avoiding places we used to go. It felt like I was erasing a part of my own history, but it was necessary. Slowly, painstakingly, I started to put myself back together. I leaned on my friends, went to therapy, rediscovered hobbies I'd let slide. I started painting again, something I loved but had neglected. I spent more time in nature, hiking, just breathing. I started to see that the love I had for him, the belief I had in us, wasn't wasted. It was real, for me. His actions didn't diminish my capacity to love or my worth. They diminished him. The self-realization was a slow burn, not a sudden flash. It wasn't about finding someone new or even about forgiving him. It was about forgiving myself for not seeing, for trusting too much, for wanting something so badly that I ignored the glaring signs. It was about understanding that my empathy and my capacity for love weren't weaknesses, but strengths. And that the only person I truly needed to trust, unequivocally, was myself.
I still think about it sometimes.
The 2 phones. The 2 women. It's a part of my story now. A painful chapter, but one that taught me more about resilience, self-worth, and discernment than any other experience. It taught me that sometimes the most beautiful illusions are the most dangerous. And that true strength isn't about avoiding pain, but about walking through it, learning from it, and emerging on the other side, a little scarred but infinitely stronger. If you've ever been through something like this, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if this story hit you even a little bit, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on that bell.